chairing the committee. This is what is termed a quasi-judicial meeting, which means that members of this committee serve not as ward councillors, but as representatives of the council as a whole. No decisions have been made before this meeting, and only members who've completed the mandatory training are able to participate in the voting. And in fact, all members present have taken that mandatory training. We don't have any members of the public who've registered to speak at this meeting. I remind everyone present to switch off their mobile phones, and my usual reminder to councillors that you don't enjoy parliamentary privilege, so please be aware of that when speaking. Item 1 on the agenda is notice that this meeting is being filmed and live streamed on the web. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any? I'll now move to item 3, apologies. I've had apologies from councillors Deakin, Mahmood Hussain, Rainbow, Marsham, Molledina and Payne.
Apologies.
And for Councillor Barry. Item 4, Chair's announcements. I don't have any announcements. So item 5 is the minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of July have been circulated. Is it agreed that I confirm and sign those minutes as a correct record?
Agreed.
And also the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of August also circulated. Is it agreed that they're a correct record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Thank you. Appointment of item 6, appointment of the Planning Committee Vice Chair. In fact, according to the constitution of the council, these posts are normally termed deputy chair, and that has been the case previously on this committee. So I just make that amendment to the appointment. Can I have any nominations for the deputy chair, please? Councillor Lee Marsham, any other nominations? Agreed to that Councillor Marsham is elected in his absence. Thank you. We're on to item 7. All these planning applications before us are for the south area. So number 7 is the proposal for York Road. Louise.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just one update on this one. We've had 2 additional letters of objection, but they don't raise any new issues that aren't already covered in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions from members? Councillor Donaldson.
So I welcome the application, which will bring back into community use a building which has stood empty for 2.5 years. I'm also pleased that the building will be used throughout the week for children's classes, mother and toddler groups, women's groups and community seminars, along with the Friday prayer meetings. There have been several objections regarding the parking issues, but I don't feel that will be an issue because there'll be 2 prayer meetings limited to 150 attendees, along with the parking facilities on site and many of the residents living local. I can't see that being an issue. I also know there's been a petition of 2,500 residents approximately who are in favour of the building. So I welcome the application and I will be voting in favour.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I do have concerns regarding this application because it's not compliant with certain council policies, most notably it's out of the local centre, which council policy suggests that we should have, and it also involves the loss of the public house. And whilst it has been empty for 2.5 years, we have had not surprising, the pub hasn't reopened in its place, given hospitality was shut as part of the lockdown restrictions. pandemic. So I am concerned that that hasn't been fully accounted for, in recognising that this is a loss of a public house because of the unique circumstances. I'm not convinced that is sufficiently addressed in the report. I also have concerns, whilst it talks about that the parking arrangements are sufficient for the proposal, quite often the attendance is far higher than specified. Far more people drive than they do walk in it. Later, because they haven't adhered to what's been specified, and particularly the transport statements often find are ineffective. So what assurances can we have that actually this will meet the demand, and what sanctions will there be?
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, councillors. I'll just pick up the issue of the parking, and then perhaps my colleague can just come in addition to that. We have looked at that very carefully in terms of our car parking standards, but also being aware that the existing lawful use, it is a public house, and obviously that would have had its own demand throughout the day and the evening in terms of the customers coming to the pub. So we've had to take that into account. We have looked carefully at the maximum occupancy, and you'll see attached to the report a number of conditions, not only in respect of the hours of operation, but also the maximum number of people that can use the premises during those times. We've also got a car park management strategy that's a condition fairly detailed. Obviously, we haven't got full details in front of you in the committee report, but that talks about the way that the car park is going to be managed and how it's painted, and the fact that we would want to have a car park supervisor there, particularly at those busy times of use, to monitor where those people are parking. And that's something also we can monitor. I don't know, Paul, whether there's anything additional you wanted to.
Thank you. Really, it's covered in the updated transport statement, but I take the point that there could not be peaks within peaks, particularly on a Friday. And it's not unusual for that management plan for car parking on Fridays to ensure that the original prayer sitting has departed prior to the set. Enables that car park to discharge and enable that capacity to be retained for the second prayer sitting. So that would be something that's factored into that management plan.
Just picking up the other 2 points that the councillor Ward raised in terms of the policy principles. So yes, the site is outside of a defined local centre. It would have been anyway as a public house, as a commercial use outside of the centre. So even if we were to approve this place of worship, it stays as a commercial use outside of the centre. So that's something we need to put weight on anyway. We have got the applicants to go through a test to have a look at that in the local centres to see whether there are any other sites or premises that they can use. Those have been discounted, and we've looked carefully at that. Comfortable with that assessment. The site's well located, not just in terms of being able to drive to it, but more importantly in terms of bus routes and being able to walk and cycle to the site. So we think that it's in a sustainable location, even though it's not within a defined centre. So I think that covers that point. Just in terms of the loss of the public house, I think we are going to see more of these applications in front of us. The site was vacated in 2019, so obviously before the pandemic hit us. So it was already vacant. We've looked with the applicant and the owner of the premises at potential other ways of diversifying the public house. You might see on the planning history, we did give permission for some additional extensions, which would have been some hotel accommodation. We thought that was something that might start to make the scheme a bit more viable. Clearly it hasn't been, they haven't implemented that scheme. We are going through a very difficult period with these types of uses, and I think you will see more applications coming forward. I think the important thing here is that the building is being retained. We have seen applications in the past where owners of the sites have wanted to completely clear the site that the pub disappears completely. The building goes, we often get applications for redevelopment for residential, and we've then got to grapple with all of those issues. It is an important building from a heritage perspective. It's locally listed, so the starting point was we want to keep this building, so you need to come up with a viable use. And I think that weighs heavily in favour of the application that you are retaining that heritage aspect. I think when you put all of those different material considerations together, that's why we recommended the application for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. Are you ready to vote on this application? Can I see those in favour? Right. Any against? That is carried with 5 votes in favour, 1 against, subject to the conditions listed in the report. Thank you. We move to item 8, which relates to the former Fitness First site, Pershore Road. Louise.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Quite a few updates on this one, Chair. The first one, we have a layout plan on page 2 of the report. Since the publication of the report, we have actually had a slightly revised layout plan, and this is in respect of the vehicle access into the site. The applicants undertook a road safety assessment, and one of the recommendations from that was to slightly widen the access to make it safer for delivery vehicles as they come into the site, to make sure they weren't crossing over where people were driving out. So that was slightly widened. That did have the knock-on effect of reducing the car parking, but only by 2 spaces. So instead of 122, which is mentioned in the report, it would be 120, but we're still comfortable with that number. That's a slight amendment to the layout. Just one point of clarification at paragraph 7.7, it was just to reiterate to members that there are no other sequentially preferable sites in Sturtley for another supermarket. The report goes into a lot of detail, particularly about the site in the centre of Sturtley off Hazelwell Road, which is being developed for an Audi. So I think it was clear in the report, but just to be absolutely clear for members, there are no other sequentially preferable sites. Just wanted to slightly revise condition 6. This is in respect of the opening hours to remove reference to bank holidays. One set of hours Monday to Saturday, and then reduced hours on a Sunday, and that's consistent with other supermarkets that you've recently. And we've had one additional email objection from Councillor Locke. She raises a number of points, most of which are already covered in the report, but I'll summarise. She notes that people complained in the past about the previous gym and bowling alley being demolished. She notes there are 4 other close by supermarkets. Questions whether the site is designated for leisure use. Makes the point that Pershore Road is a main arterial route into and out of Sturtley, and then suggests that it might be that members want to do a site visit. All of the points are covered in the report, other than obviously the issue of the site visit. That obviously is down to members today that felt that was necessary, but obviously there's a lot of detail in the report. There are photos attached to it and a location plan. Thank you, Chair.
Questions for members of the
Thank you, Chair. I do remember this originally when it first came to planning committee. So it makes me feel incredibly old. But I remember it was particularly controversial at the time because there were other sites which people were advocating should be used instead. I know obviously the Hazelwell site was one of them, but I'm sure there was another one further down. I think it's like the Magnet site. I'm not sure. I assume that's no longer available based on the report. So, but there was a second site that people were preferring to be used instead of this, because clearly at that time it was a very important community asset that was reflected by the number of people who have objected and attended that committee. But we are where we are now. The site is gone, it's been gone for some time. Something ideally would be nice to have leisure facilities reintroduced. That isn't possible with their current planning. I see no reason to consider this, in particularly given so hopefully that will.
Question?
Just a comment. Thank you, Chair. The site has been empty now for 10 years. It's been demolished for several years. It's a bit of a blight on Sturchley. And as Councillor Moore has said, discount supermarkets are perhaps welcome at the current time. We should probably support this.
And I think given the detail in the report, I really can't see any advantage to the committee in a site visit. I think all the information is actually before us. The questions before I bring the officer back? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to confirm the point you raised about other sequentially preferable sites, they've gone. Yeah, so they've either got consent or they've already been built out. So, and yeah, the one in the centre was right. So yeah, this is the only site left at the moment. That's not in the centre.
Okay, I'm going to put it to the vote. Can I see those in favour of the recommendations in 9 to approve subject to the conditions in the report? 6. Against. So the report is carried with 6 votes in favour and none against. Report number 9 relates to 20 Hamlet Road, Hall Green. Louise.
No updates on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Questions or comments? Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to inquire about the, because it's a semi-detached property, noise insulation between the two properties. Is there any insulation in place, and could some commercial grade insulation be?
Any other questions or comments? Sorry. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. My comments are similar to Councillor Donaldson's, because I'm sure at one point council policies that these should be detached properties to remove the potential noise impact for adjoining properties. So, in addressed on the board, I don't know if we've changed our policy with the DMB, but I do share those concerns about the potential impact. I appreciate families can be noisy, and there's no suggestion to be involved. There is an impact that needs to be addressed and fully considered.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Councillor
I want to go along with that because clearly, if you look at the sort of children they're going to have in this property, it's not very clear. I would imagine, having been a senior social worker, child protection, and gone to various properties for years, there could well be issues of noise coming from there. So I think before we pass it, we should investigate that, to be honest.
Any other questions or comments? Can I bring Louise back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members. Just having a look at that, yeah, you're right. The policy directs in normal circumstances to look at detached properties and to sort of take away that potential for the immediate noise and disturbance. I mean, this is quite a large semi-detached property, and there is a pathway that divides it between number 20 and number 18. So I think that's quite good. Looking at the photos, there is a potential there for the living rooms and the bedrooms, obviously, to adjoin the neighbouring property. I don't know what their noise insulation is at the moment, and so I don't think there would be any objection to imposing a condition for us to get more details about the existing noise insulation and then require some enhancement to that, and we can obviously liaise with our regulatory services officers on that. So, yeah, if members are minded to approve, and we could do that with an additional condition.
Can I put it to the committee that we agree that's subject to that condition? Yeah. All those in favour? And against. So that's approved. Obviously, subject not only to the conditions listed, but also to the further condition relating to insulation. Any other urgent business? Being none, can I move to item 11? Can you agree the necessary authority to chair and officers? Thank you. The meeting is closed.